Hello and welcome to Confidently Wrong, a show by regular dudes talking with confidence about content we have no right to think about with any kind of authority, but do it anyway. I'm Wesley Nakamura, and as always, I'm joined by award-winning director Brian Redondo and Savon Jones, aka Captain Bonnie. This is episode 140, and we dive into the rebooted reimagining of Mr. and Mrs. Smith. I'm confident that it's going to be the best show you've ever listened to, and well, hey, if it's not, you can always ask us for a refund.
Incredible!
Hello, gentlemen. Good to see you all. Sav, Twist still looking good. Brian, good to see you.
Am I not looking good? Come on.
Well,
my chop liver.
You're making. Well, maybe wait till after the show.
No.
Because all the fans called you out on it last time you did that.
They didn't call him out on it. They're just like, I understand.
Yeah, like solidarity. Like I see you, young brother. Not this guy doing
Affirmations.
Yeah, it was affirmations.
Brian,
Affirmations.
That's a good one.
You do look a little pixelated, so it's hard to tell. I'm sure you're looking very, very young and youthful and energized. I can hear you just fine. That's all. It's a listening podcast.
Yeah, you look censored too, Wes.
That's all I need.
Wes after dark.
Wes is definitely hiding out from the government.
Right.
That's so crazy. On my end, I see myself perfectly in HD.
My son biased as hell.
Very
He's
confusing.
the main character.
All right, friends, let's get into this show. We told the people ahead of time. We're like a professional show, guys. We're really getting it together here. It's like we plan things now. Mr. and Mrs. Smith, starring Donald Glover, Maya Erskine on Amazon Prime Video, which now shows ads. What the fuck? I'm not a fan. I forgot that was coming.
Fucking nasty.
And it's a long block of ads too. It's like 2 minutes of ads before the show starts.
At least I don't think they interspersed it within the show. I think it was just at the beginning. But yeah, man,
it's all front loaded.
Fuck that. God damn it, that sucks. Anyways, it's fine. Everything is fine. You could pay an extra $3 a month to make the ads go away if you want, I guess.
We're basically going back to network TV.
Yeah, everybody's making that
joke. And it's more expensive.
It's more expensive. And the sports conglomerates are going to try and come together, too, to provide a one streaming service that can show lots of sports. But they don't have CBS, so NFL is going to be a little bit cut off at the knees there. Or I think the service will be cut off at the knees because it doesn't include NFL, I guess is what I'm saying.
Big facts.
So we're not here to talk about the streaming industry and all the economics around that because they need to get their shit together. Consumers, we need to get our shit together and really decide if that's the utopia that we want.
How do consumers get their shit together? We're just kind of at their mercy.
I mean, no, because you could go back to alternatives or cut back or whatever. I don't know. You don't have to be on streaming. Friends, let's get into it. Mr. and Mrs. Smith. So I wasn't quite sure what to expect, but it turns out that we're getting a comedic, a little bit absurdist reimagining of the 2005, kind of medium hit, Mr. and Mrs. Smith.
Because the source material was so serious.
Starring Brad Pitt, Angelina Jolie, but very different tone. I mean, this is like a different animal, I think. So did you enjoy the first one? What do you recall, Brian? Were you into the first Mr. and Mrs. Smith?
I think. Does anybody really remember that movie?
I remember.
Other than Brangelina,
I watched it multiple
trying to
times.
kill each other.
I remember it.
I mean, I remember it being fun, and I remember them looking good, and it was hot and heavy, and there's an ATV fight at some point or something like that, and that's kind of it. Like, what else is there to say about Mr. and Mrs. Smith? As you said, it's kind of just like a mid-tier hit.
Yeah, it was popcorn
right?
fare. Nothing.
It's not something you revisit.
Well, I revisited it several times. I like that movie, and that was kind of the maybe the peak or pinnacle of Angelina Jolie's career, kind of as an action hero, right? She's doing like Tomb Raider around that time. She's doing that, and then she did I think it was Wanted. Was that what it was called?
Yeah, Wanted.
The one where they could bend the
bullets.
Yeah,
bullet benders.
So that time period is like really kind of her the really like peak of her career especially as an action star. So I don't know. It was fun. Good movie. Sav, did you enjoy it? It sounds like you watched it a lot.
Yeah, I enjoyed it. I mean, I wasn't like when it came out like 07-ish. I just remember that was one of movies where we came back after the storm. We just had a handful of our DVDs, but I remember fun action sequences, the shootouts being dope. I think the idea of like these two agencies, and like one was like this really prim and proper agency of like all these badass women, and then Brad Pitt was in this agency of like these kind of more dude bros, which was also hilarious. And like Vince Vaughn was one of his best friends who was also hysterical. I remember it being an entertaining movie, a cool premise that we hadn't really seen before, all the Brangelina hype that was around it. But I just remember the action sequences and stuff being really fun to watch, and them two just always having to lie to each other, and that little cat mouse relationship. It wasn't some blockbuster change my life movie, but it was a fun and interesting concept with legitimately talented actors. And, you know, all that to say, I'm not upset at them doing a reimagining TV show 20 years later. Like, I don't think there's anything weird or distasteful about that compared to maybe other properties and how they use IP.
No, but it's very, to me, it like doesn't feel like the same property even, and they've kind of changed the premise in some ways.
And you're upset about that. You sound very upset.
No, not upset. Just a very you could call this show a different name, and I wouldn't even think necessarily like, oh, this is Mr. and Mrs. Smith from the other movie, like in the same inspiration. You know, there's a few similarities in that they're hired hitmen and they don't really know what's going on, but other than that, there's kind of a lot of big differences in terms of how the setup is. So,
what are the big differences?
So for me, the big differences are in the old movie, the two of them didn't really know what the other's secret life was for a long time. And then Brad figures it out in the beginning because he sees her in that desert scene in kind of one of the opening scenes. And then he has to come back home and pretend that he doesn't know to not give himself away that he was there, because she was obviously like fighting him, but didn't know that it was him. And so a lot of the first half of the movie is them kind of playing around with and kind of pretty hilariously playing around with this idea that like one of them knows and one of them doesn't, but one of them is pretending not to know and the other one is pretending to be normal. And obviously it's, you know, they're making it a sham, which is kind of fun. In this one, both Donald Glover's character and Maya Erskine's character, both of them know that the other one is an assassin. They both are in this and they got paired together. And so they're supposed to be a team right from the get-go. And that's kind of the biggest setup difference here. We still don't know who's setting them up. It doesn't appear to be two different companies putting them together. They just call it the company. And then they get their orders from a computer or AI or a text message or something, but we don't have any other interactions with people who are part of this company. So,
and they're basically given the alias Jane and John Smith, hence becoming Mr. and Mrs. Smith. And as part of this whole setup, they are actually married.
Yeah, or they've got a document that says they're married at least, and then they wear wedding rings and stuff. They didn't go in the old one. I feel like they actually fell in love.
I think so,
and got married.
They fell in love,
not knowing the other one happened to be
each other. Yeah. Or they were closing off part of their work life.
They fell in love for real and didn't know that the other two were like, the other one was a hired assassin.
It's
in
like
this one,
when you marry someone and then find out later that they're a stripper and you're like, oh my God.
What?
I
is Anna a stripper?
If either
of
y'all's wives were either dancers or hit women or whatever, it at least make for a good pod episode. At the very least, like
respect, right? Respect.
No. If Jen was a stripper or managed to get that secret,
she wasn't actually a doctor. She turned out to be
a stripper. I would just be mad about the fact that I didn't know, not the fact that she's a stripper. I don't care if you're a stripper. I just don't. Why would you?
If she having a secret life,
like
I need you to, like literally. If my significant other has a secret life, I need you to be getting some money. Like that's what it really comes down to. If you don't have a secret, I need to at least benefit from this secret. Like, oh, babe, that's all this extra money. Don't have a secret life that I don't even like get to reap the spoils from. Like, oh, you got a secret life and it's not even something that I benefit from? Like, oh, it's not like, oh, I secretly have this job. That's how I afforded those courtside Laker tickets. It's no, I got a secret job and you also have no benefit from it except the deceit. Or you get nothing out of it except me lying to you. I'm like, oh, that's whack. I can take the lies if I can get a perk out of it.
That's funny.
If she has a secret set of skills, I want to enjoy those skills. You know?
Like, what if I need her to kill somebody for me? Like, hey, man, you a hit woman? Like, hey, hold on. So and so been acting a fool.
No, Brian wants the stripper skills. He's saying
whatever you get your hands on. Anyways, what were we saying about but what about the new one? Yeah, what about it?
Okay, so this one I want to move on to our next part, which is that the casting is kind of interesting here, right? Like, kind of on its face value, I think I'm not going to speak for everybody. I had some skepticism as to whether like this connection between Maya Erskine and Donald Glover would end up being, like being a good match, whether they'd have chemistry. Certainly it was going to be different no matter what, right from the get-go, of the chemistry between Brad and Angelina Jolie. Just very different people and very different like ways of that they've been in film before. So kind of interesting.
These are not model-esque people who usually tote guns in the roles that they play.
Right. Not at all. In fact, like, didn't he play or Donald Glover plays like Lando, and like I don't think he holds a gun that entire time. Maybe once, but mostly just gets by on his charisma and charm. So that's the kind of roles we're used to seeing him. And then we see, we know him as Troy from Community. Mm-hmm. Definitely wasn't holding a gun there.
In the morning.
Yeah, throwback.
That was good. Can we clip that into a drop? We'll just introduce ourselves that way every time.
Since Savon and Brian in the morning.
I'm here for it.
I just learned that Phoebe Waller-Bridgers, who I'm not familiar with her work, but she was part of Fleabag. I think she starred in Fleabag and wrote it. She was actually working with Donald Glover originally, trying to flesh out the show, and they were planning to star in it. I think they had kind of a difference of creative process and vision and how the show was going to go, and their idea of what works and what doesn't in terms of comedy for their individual, characters that they wanted to play. And so they ended up separating, and Maya Erskine kind of comes in later into the project. So I don't know how that affects things. I'm not someone who knows how shows work, but and I don't know if Maya got a chance to really like write in the show, or whether it was really already mostly done and she kind of just joins as an actor rather than as a writer and actor. Brian, do you know, or Sav, do you know?
Nope.
Okay. So I think the question for me was like, how do you feel about these two going in, and how do you feel about it now that you've seen it? So Brian, Maya Erskine's character, Jane Smith, and Donald Glover, John Smith. What do you think?
Yeah, so I think a big draw for me for this show is not the IP that it's based off of, right? Like I already talked about, like, okay, Mr. and Mrs. Smith was fine, whatever. What I think hooks me in is saying that, like, okay, they're going to take this IP, but then throw in two actors who I really love independently together in a very unlikely way and see where it goes. And so I think that is the enticing premise for me. Donald Glover from Atlanta, from Community, like anything this guy touches is usually pretty good. I mean, this is America, right? Like one of the biggest songs of the past decade. Mm-hmm. And then you got Maya Erskine, who, if you haven't seen,
Donald Glover clearly been working out.
You like those pectorals, don't you?
His chest is like whoop.
He got
show
some
it
man
off.
Breast.
Yeah.
That's some like Purdue chicken breast, like HGMO.
Yeah.
Like anyway, so it's Maya Erskine.
What's that grunt?
Who she's the one that's grunting. She's like,
oh,
I like it. Right? So if you haven't seen Pen 15, which is unclear to some people that it says penis, right? Pen 15 is Maya Erskine's her kind of love child that she wrote, she directed a lot of it, she starred in it. Phenomenal, hilarious TV show, right? So you put her next to Childish Gambino in this premise where they are spies and assassins and stuff like that. It's like, yeah, of course I want to see how that turns out. And I think, in my opinion, I think they run away with this thing. I think they are actually a really excellent pairing. Maya doesn't really get to do the sort of comedy that she does in Pen 15, which is off the wall. She kind of has to rein it in more in this show and play kind of maybe like a little bit of a tight ass, to contrast with, the winking, smiling, charismatic Donald Glover as he normally is, and to great effect. I think they do have like what feels like to me a very earnest chemistry. And if you make it through to the end of the season, it's basically an entire romantic arc, right? From first first kiss, first blush, all the way to the end of, where things start feeling a little bit more like the original movie. And I think that seeing that relationship progress and degress is a really nice arc coming from the both of them.
Wait, so you watched all the way to the end?
I did.
Oh, okay.
I think this is actually a great couch watch for couples.
All right. Sav, what did you think of the two actors?
Yeah, I thought it was good. I mean, I'm always a fan of when shows can put actors in not just what we would put them in casting wise, like I'm never a fan of we need someone to be a badass. All right, let's just find a big, traditionally gruff, big badass looking person. Oh, we need this person to be this. Let's have him be I like that they pass off as regular people. It makes the premise a lot more believable when they have to be these assassin, spy, espionage, regular people who look like supermodels aren't going around doing assassinations and whatnot. It's regular Joe Schmo looking folks. So that element of the casting I already was a fan of. But what I really am enjoying about the casting and the acting is that, and granted, I'm saying as someone who doesn't know anything about an actual assassin, right? But
Brian's taking notes.
These feel like more realistic depictions of people who maybe are hired or have killed for a living than maybe other ones that leans more into the badass. This one kind of leans more into they're weird, they're awkward, they're not great at making small talk. They're good at doing really niche things related to their job, right? Like the way they both would subtly do things to snoop on each other and infer information from things they see around them, or even Glover being at the silent auction, right? And his first instinct is, I'm gonna scuff my shoes, go in as help instead, because that'll be easier for me to be a caterer. Like those moments, the actors really get to shine, but I think they were set up to succeed by being given dialogue and put into a role that leans into their awkwardness and them being smooth and not smooth at the same time. Like when it's time to do some espionage stuff, they're smooth, but when it's just having like a regular conversation, they're still so like.
I keep thinking you're saying like Epstein, like Jeffrey Epstein. Espionage.
No, espionage.
Yikes.
No, why would you ruin that word?
Yeah, espionage.
What is that? Could have been an upstairs thought.
You
Wes.
opened the door when you said espionage, and I think you said it twice.
Me? Did I say it wrong?
Espionage.
Espionage. Espionage.
There you
Sorry,
go.
Whatever.
I kind of like.
No, I do not.
I don't like espionage.
Espionage.
Please. Let's not do that.
Let's avoid that. Anyways, I think the material does a good job to let
We're
them...
the word police over here.
No, but I think it gives them a chance to flex their... It's kind of like what I liked about about True Detective, where they're getting lots of dialogue and acting scenes to show them being good at their jobs, and that is fun to watch when you contrast with how awkward and guarded they are too, and that dynamic in watching it play out with them of being vulnerable, guarded, and then hyper competent is a fun dynamic to watch play out on screen. All that to say, I like the
Speaking of True Detective, I still don't have any idea what's going on in True Detective.
Well, we'll talk about that in a later episode.
I think both Savon and I are going to lose our bet. But anyway.
Really? All right.
Mr. and Mrs. Smith.
Okay. First few episodes. What are you liking? I have loved there's been a few like really cool comedic beats. I've loved that there's kind of this underlying pain and sadness that both of them are sort of hiding early on in the season that they sort of let out for like a minute, like a second or two, and then it kind of, they hide it back, and we're sort of like wondering like, oh, what's actually going on with these characters and why did they give up their normal everyday lives to throw away basically all of their connections, and we see that like they kind of make a slight big deal about it in the third episode that Donald Glover actually hasn't given up one of his connections to his mom or his connection to his mom. He still cares for her and talks to her, even though he's not supposed to. It's against the rules. So that kind of stuff I've been liking for sure. And just the like interactions that they have sometimes are just really, really funny, or they're really, really like good in terms of like they're just like poking at each other's vulnerabilities in a way that's like interesting.
Yeah, I think that sounds about right, and I think it speaks to the chemistry of their relationship, or maybe more like the realism of their relationship as two people put in a situation. It's like basically if you were to have a real life work romance is what we are seeing on screen, and so we see the evolution of that, and I think to me that is the most fun part of watching this. Like, oh, they come together, they're a little awkward, they're trying to size each other up with like what's each person, where that person's coming from, and then as soon as they have an exhilarating mission, then it's off to the races. Like, oh, why don't we kiss for real this time, right? rather than as dogs on John Turturro's carpet.
Hey, you spoiled it.
and then we jump ahead in time. Every episode they jump ahead a little bit in time, and the relationship has changed slightly. So like by episode 3, they're smashing, but it's progressing. They're enjoying it, and they're still discovering things in their relationship. Like by the end of the episode, Jane is trying to figure out how to fart in front of John, right?
Yeah.
This like real relationship stuff, and then all the way up until episode 8, where things get really raw and vulnerable, and you're like, wow, this feels like relationships. And I think that's something, as a man married for 5 years and in the same relationship for 10, like I really appreciate that aspect of watching the show.
Y'all so adorable. I won't be like y'all when I grow up.
Get on my level.
I'm trying, man. I'm lonely, dog. Sad boy savage.
You can't put a ring on that Kleenex.
Yeah, Jesus.
Because whoa,
damn, what I did to you? Dang, what I did to you?
Top rope.
Dang,
Whoa.
sweet chin music. He's not RKO.
Oh. Sav, tell us.
Which part? Like just the.
What are you liking?
Yeah, I mean, I just like that they're portraying them. I mean, I said it before. I like when they're badasses without being a tradition. Like they're redefining what being a badass looks like. Being a badass doesn't mean that you run up and beat up a whole room full of dudes. Like their version of just badassery, just from these first 3 episodes, is just really fun to watch. Them having moments where they're gun nerds. Them being hyper observant, right? Like when Jane's talking to the neighbor who's kind of being a little snoopish, and then she goes in, he's immediately just like, hey, what was up with him? Like they're awkward, but they really are. You can just see the moments where they're conditioned to just always be taking in information, looking for deeper meanings, lying, deceiving. It's a very just chill depiction of it that's different than the traditional James Bond, I'm smooth, I'm not, but I'm smooth, but like I'm almost unrealistically smooth. That weird blend of, even when they're trying to swap out the package, right? And like that whole little sequence it's tight and it's well done, but it doesn't feel so smooth that it's unrealistic, but it's frenetic enough to where you can see them thinking on their feet. And I don't know, in my mind, this is what it feels like real spy stuff must look like, rather than something that went so perfectly smooth that it looked choreographed almost. Like this has that weird blend of, they have a plan, but it's not so choreographed that it feels like you're watching a heist film, because there's that random element of they're still thinking on the fly and kind of shit just happens. It's well done, and I know I'm hoping that it's only going to get better as the episodes go by. But for example, another one was
they mess up, right?
Yeah, and they mess up. Like one of my favorite parts of the first episode, because I had to think back about it, was when he delivered the cake, right? And they're like, hey, what's up with this cake? This is weird. And then the lady says, can I offer y'all a drink? Would you like to stay? And Jane says yes, and John says no. And you can tell that John, right, is more mission, at least in that moment, he's more mission focused. He doesn't want to talk about it. He's like, let's get the job done and keep it moving. And that saves their lives. That's what stops them from dying in the first episode. Did y'all catch that?
Oh, yeah. Oh, definitely.
Like, you catch that, Wes? Like, yeah, if they had stayed to get a beverage, they would have been there when the bomb blew up and died. And like, I think even Jane was shook a little bit of like, oh man, I'm glad he was kind of just in work mode and on, because that stopped us from dying. Like, it's not a huge thing. It's not James Bond noticing a bunch of subtle things are wrong. Hey, we can get out of here. It's just a line of, no, let's go. Like that, it gives the show a authenticity that makes the action and the things that happen feel more grounded, rather than, again, an action movie that can feel just like it's really just long choreography.
I think that's one of the like hard parts I'm having with it, though, is that they are executing these quote unquote high risk missions, or super high risk as they get into episode 4. But a lot of it we don't know how much briefing they're getting. We don't really know how much training they've had. They kind of just seem mostly like regular people. And that's kind of how they're sort of presenting themselves. And like, yeah, maybe they're like functional with firearms, but they don't seem like elite, warriors in some way. They're not the Navy SEALs. And so like in some ways, the fact that they just sort of like luck into that kind of situation, that they're not doing these actual like scouting, planning pieces, they just sort of get thrown into it without actually planning what they're doing. That part makes it feel unbelievable a little bit to me, because you couldn't do that several times and get away with it. Like you would have an accident of some sort because you weren't planned and ready for it. So if you're not going to be a super James Bourne, think on your feet, like notice everything, or Sherlock Holmesian kind of character, then you got to make up for it in some other way. And they're actually unplanned. They go in and be like, we don't know we don't know what we're looking for. Let's just do it. And they happen to, so, but it just like that part of it feels inconsistent, that they're not like fuck ups. They're not really good at their jobs. They're not, at being an assassin. We don't get to see all of that. So, yeah.
Brian, are you going to push back?
I'm not bothered. Yeah, I'm not bothered by that, because because they show us the interview room when they are trying to get hired into the spy agency in the first place. And, you understand from their starting point and from their backgrounds, right, that, for example, Jane didn't get into the CIA, right? You understand from their backgrounds and that process that they are new at this, that they are coming from backgrounds that maybe don't necessarily indicate that they have spy experience, right? And so now they are being thrust into these situations that they wanted to be in, and are naturally, because the show takes on probably more realism than the original movie at all, right? Like they take on that realism, so they are naturally going to fumble through these missions, right? And are trying to actively figure out what it means to be the spy that they are trying so hard to be. And to me, that's what makes it interesting.
But the unbelievable part to me is that they would survive all of these missions. Like, Brian, you saw.
Well, the show has to proceed, right? Like,
you want them to die in the first episode?
No, but like they made it into the jungle in episode 4. They were getting like shot at a bunch in episode 3.
Oh, that was for comedic effect, though, with the jungle. That they made it out.
Oh, you thought it was for comedic effect?
At the very end of it, of course, so they could just do that gag with the cell phone where they're covered in blood. It's like, oh my god, that was not fun.
Yeah,
right. Also, that's a bit, right?
Yeah.
They purposely did not show us anything that happened in the jungle. They're just trying to make the point that they professed love to each other, and that high risk is really bad.
Yeah.
Super high risk or whatever.
Where I'm also gonna push back.
Where
I'm also gonna Jesus Wes. Is Wes about to be mad at shows that main characters are main characters?
No, generally I like that kind of thing, but it just feels discombobulated.
Where I also push back is that, and this is a strength of the show, is that being a spy doesn't just mean that you're John Wick with a gun. A bunch of the spy stuff is about your observation skills, your talking to people skills. Like, part of why I enjoyed the ski slope episode was because outside of the fight at the end, which, by the way, they didn't need to do because at that point the mission was accomplished, but all of that was about navigating people, listening, reading between the lines, and being able to talk to people in a way where,
I like that one.
But my point is that was me, in my opinion. That's why that's why I disagree with your point, because they didn't need to be experts fighting and throwing hands. And like being a badass isn't just knowing how to shoot and fight people. It's knowing how to get information, because some missions aren't combat missions, right? And that whole thing was about reconnaissance and listening. So they had to bug the phones. They had to listen to the couple, figure out what was weird about their relationship, leverage that to start individual conversations so that they could get more information. And by the time the kidnapping part happened, which was irrelevant to them, they had successfully done the entire job without having to do a single bit of fighting. But they wouldn't have done it if it wasn't for their really high level observation skills, on top of being able to think on the fly and improvise. But like, to me, that reinforced that while there's still a lot about them we have to learn with their past, they are still very, like, I feel like the show has been making a very strong point of these two are very observant and intelligent, and that's what puts them a cut above these other people who they're interacting with, even if we don't know a lot about their past and how they got to this point. But that's what's selling me on the show, is that Donald Glover doesn't look like a badass, but he could talk to you because he was listening to your marriage troubles and leverage that to bug your phone and get his spy mission done, and you were none the wiser.
Oh
like,
yeah,
to
I
me,
like
yeah,
that
but
part.
to
I
me
think
that
was cool.
legitimizes all of the concerns that you kind of had about how good are they, how believable.
No, but then they throw it away. They throw it away in the next episode.
Well, if Brian said it's them doing a gag or a bit, then I'm gonna lean towards that.
You're totally just misreading
I'm
that
be,
scene,
I'm be
Wes.
honest,
that was
man.
not the focus.
I'm gonna be honest,
Wes.
Sometimes your media literacy be a little. It'd be leaving something to be desired.
All right, listeners, tell me if I'm wrong. So I'm just gonna spoil it. They get thrown into the jungle in a mission they aren't prepared for. They have no idea what the brief is. And they're on a super high-risk mission. So it's one level above where they've been operating.
I think you're taking this way too literally. But okay.
No, but this is part of what they're trying to figure out I think they're trying to figure out what's going on with the company. But so they get dropped in, and then they say they had to kill a bunch of people with a machete, because when you see them drop in, there's like 8 guys around them, right? So they have to fight off everybody and then get back to the chopper, like Arnold Schwarzenegger, and then get out of there. And they're upset by what they had to do. And they're like, hey, fuck those other guys, right? There's kind of the whole first part of the episode is about this other couple. And they're realizing...
What Wes is complaining about is literally 2 minutes of screen.
Oh, I'm not entertaining.
I'll just point that out.
But I was going to go into that part, which I'm side-eyeing a little bit, is like the action scenes are actually the weakest part. And sometimes they don't show it to us at all. They just sort of like show us the beginning and show us the end. Like, they won. Yeah. And I think that also doesn't contribute to the believability a little bit for me, because I'm like, you didn't want to show these people fighting because neither of them are actually competent fighters. And like, am I supposed to believe that they fought off a whole jungle horde of fighters with their own guns or whatever, with machetes, when like you haven't shown us any kind of like actual physical skill? It's like,
so I think
a little weak.
What people need to know about this show is that the reason why they don't show these fights is because the show is not about fights at
Agreed.
all. It's
but then they
really
have them.
The show is not about Mr. and Mrs. Smith from 2005.
Right.
This show, this is a relationship show.
They did focus on other stuff. I mean, it still has to happen.
Through.
Like, action scenes still has to happen because of the nature of their job. It's just not the focus. Like, that makes perfect. There's lots of shows.
No, but they don't happen. The action scenes don't happen. They just skip them.
Yeah, because it's not the focus of the show. That's not even the plot point, right?
What like, the issue is, Wes.
That mission had nothing to do with the plot of that entire episode. It's just a thing that they did to make a point about the other couple that they were talking to, about the high-risk nature, and really to put them in a situation where the two of them profess their love for each other.
Yeah.
And so you're going to be really mad by the time you hit, I think it's episode 5 or 6. So Wes, I gotta tell you, I don't know, like, I don't know how you're gonna handle it, because there's not gonna be any action.
I just think Wes got that iffy media literacy, because I get exactly what you're saying. There's some show, there's been shows that have different versions of the same show where one leans into different elements of the other, even though they're telling the same story, but they focus on different elements of the story. If this is not meant to be an action show, it's meant to be a character-driven relationship drama, but action is the backdrop of the story, then, that's the stuff that can help make certain points, but that's not to your point, it's not the anime where you have a 10-minute fight scene or something, because that's never what their goal was to have. No, I mean, even the gunfight at the end of the snow episode was like, it was more about him going off on his own and them building a relationship, not really or him relating to the couple's plight less in his own trauma, not the actual gunfight itself, which frankly I didn't care about. Not in a bad way, but in like to your point, Brian, that's not what I was getting out of that. What I was getting out of that is, you have a thing about, you clearly have certain triggers and buttons to be pressed when it comes to relationships and mothers and family. How is that going to impact your relationship and how the rest of this show goes when a clear theme is you have to cut and let it go? Like, that's more important than the gunfight itself, which was just a means to an end of progressing the events.
I don't
like
disagree,
him getting hurt
but
even gave it the space of when he's in the tub and sets up the whole bit of like, oh, you really do care.
that was funny.
But like, to Brian's point though,
got her. You got her.
But the point is, but no, I agree though. Like, those parts were better and more interesting than the fight itself, which I think leans into what Brian's point is. Because I'll watch the next episode, but if that's like a 2-minute bit, then it's clear that you're right. The show isn't about the action. The action is just something that happens to progress certain elements of the plot.
I mean, maybe this would help if I see more like episodes 5 and 6 or 7 or whatever. But like, I get what you're saying. I don't like necessarily disagree all the way. I think where I'm disagreeing is if you're making a big deal, which they are, about the level of assignment that they have in this assassin company of some sort, or this, tactical company, the danger needs to feel like there's actual danger, and you need to see that like they're actually surviving by the skin of their teeth, rather than they just like handled
Let's be
it.
real.
They're just super
real.
soldiers, even though like you said, the whole premise is that they're not actually maybe super soldiers. They come in and they don't seem like they actually have super special training, so like,
See,
that's
I
what
don't
I'm
see
saying,
it that
like,
way.
some of
I
this
think
just
they
feels
do have super special
discombobulated.
training. They're just low key about it, and they're both guarded and hidden about their past lives. I think they do have bad training. You just haven't talked about it because we're only 3-4 episodes in. Brian,
but how we could just know is if they showed us doing it one time. Just show us one time them being like super, excellent at their tactical stuff, and then cool. I get it. I understand why
just talk about
Donald
that?
Glover was
We
able
did
to
we
shine
did
that
with
in
the spy
the
scene.
gunfight.
Yeah, with the gunfight and with all the different spy scenes.
He was hitting headshots. Come on.
Okay. All right. Sounds good.
Gives evidence to support point. I'm just gonna ignore that.
Okay, moving on.
I mean, he also just like ran away and was shooting behind him like this. Like it wasn't elite tactical stuff that we've seen on TV before.
That's
like,
not how real.
He shot a guy that was sitting still in the cab
Wes,
of the snowplow.
Wes, you could do better. You could hit a guy in a snowplow. Oh man, this is ridiculous.
If he's right
you
next
are
to me,
Wessing right now.
I mean, he fought off 5 guys with guns. Like,
all right.
What do you want?
He wants John Wick 7.
Yeah, you want John Wick. You want Jason Bourne. You're like,
but
not
tonally, this show is never going to be like, because even this show's idea.
I don't think it had to be that all the time, but I think like if you're going to say they're super high risk, they're really good at, like, they've survived for a year now doing this thing in super high risk missions or high risk missions, like, you want me to believe they're going to survive all these things, you probably got to show me at least one time that they're going to survive it. You can't.
This reminds
hide
me about
the most
how mad
dangerous
you are
situation.
that Across the Spider-Verse ended on a cliffhanger.
That fucking sucked.
Imagine Wes watching a Star Wars.
They didn't show me the fight. They didn't tell me there's a third movie.
Get him out of here.
Same with Dune. Why is Dune Part 2? We had no idea that was coming. No idea.
And just so you know, there's probably a Dune Part 3. Okay?
Oh God, really?
He'll still be mad that there's not a neat bow wrapped on top of the ending. You just live it at the end of Empire Strikes Back.
There's no bow.
You're just mad at the end of Empire Strikes Back.
Not even that there's
Vader
not a neat
won,
bow. There isn't a bow.
He lost his hand. Han's frozen. This is awful. What's happening next? That was my West impersonation.
All right. Is there anything you guys are side-eyeing about the show?
Not really. Like, the show,
it's a perfect show.
It's
no
not
notes.
really perfect, but like, a show doesn't have to be perfect for me to not have any, like, there isn't like a major thing that stood out. I was like, oh, this is whack. Oh, I don't like this. I see what they're going for. I like the tone. I think one thing that you mentioned this isn't a side eye, really. This is just I'm curious. Is I think we know from the intro of the first episode that, and you're talking about the whole danger piece, the agency clearly are the real villains in danger. You know, we saw that previous couple who, to me, felt like a homage to the first movie, get shot up and killed. And we saw the line about, hey, don't mess up again. So clearly that's an ominous thing that's like, hey, something's going to happen that's going to compromise their relationship with the agency. So when we were talking about the danger piece and them being in danger, I'm waiting for that stuff to kick up before I'm like, oh, this is the real danger, because I don't think the missions are the real high risk. It's the, what does this mysterious agency want, and what are their motives, and how does that tie into their past? So like, I know you talked about the stake. That's what I'm waiting on. But all that to say, like, that's what I'm most invested in. It's only 3 episodes in for me right now, so I don't expect answers about that. But that is what'll really decide whether or not I side-eye anything about the show. But the dialogue, production, character interactions, all of that, I don't have any qualms. And I love that first date energy that they have so much of.
Yeah, so I, having
episode
seen
4,
the rest of it,
a little bit in episode 4, you get a little bit of a peek behind the window, but not enough to know what their actual gig is.
I think to Savon's point about how their supervisors, how high might be putting them into
high.
Or might be doling out some harsh consequences. All of that stuff does come to a head.
It
by
does.
the end of the season. So which they're kind of they've been telegraphing, right? That the first scene of the show telegraphs it, right?
It's a couple getting lit up, who's like a Mr. Smith couple getting lit up. I'm like, oh, okay, so whatever's immediately that told me from the bounce, oh, the agency's the real villain. Cool, let's see how this plays out.
Yeah, so definitely some really fun stuff happens by the end of the season. Where I do have some nits
feedback
to pick, right? has to do with how they've decided to tell the story. Like as I mentioned, every episode is jumping in time ahead just a little bit, and you sort of have to fill in the blanks as to how they arrived at this new stage in their relationship, both romantic and working. And I think for me, I get a little lost towards the end, and like, just where did things go off the rails a little bit, and why exactly are they behaving in the ways that they're behaving? And I think some of that, I definitely think it's intentional on the show, that you're supposed to kind of infer and fill in those blanks based on the clues that they're giving you. But part of me wants, I want to see more of that, of how we arrive at some of these points. But I think on the whole, we do get to see more behind the curtain and what's going on. To some extent, of course, Wes, just so you know, there's a cliffhanger at the end of
I imagine
this first season.
Yeah.
So we don't know everything.
No. Because it feels like they want this to be a multi-season show if possible. I don't think I'm a connoisseur of comedy, so I don't know if this is true for you guys, but the scene with John Turturro and Donald Glover and Maya Erskine was one of the funniest things I've seen, and maybe I was just in the right mood for it, but it was like funny, it was jaw-dropping, it was like absurdist. It felt like an SNL bit, but like in a show, it actually was funnier because you're not expecting them to go this like ridiculous. I won't spoil it necessarily, but the setup was like, we can pay him, and they were pointing to Donald Glover. We can pay him a lot of money to do whatever we want. And John Turturro is like this rich asshole, basically. If you guys had an obscene amount of money, what are you asking Donald Glover to do for that obscene amount of money? Savon, what are you getting Donald Glover to do for you?
Do rap battle lines against my enemies. I would want him to be
like tear them down.
That's how you want to tear down your enemies.
You want him to make a diss track about your enemies.
Yes, I want Donald Glover to make diss tracks about people or concepts or things that I don't like. Now, I don't have a lot of enemies, but with money like that, I would make it a goal to make some enemies. And I would want Donald Glover to be the guy who I just have release diss tracks, people who I don't like. So,
just
at the gym, them. Like, oh, this a-hole parked in my spot at the lot in my apartment. All right, bet. Get the information. Hey, what's your name, bro? Hey, Donald. Sorry.
Tell me a little bit about
Gambeezy. Get him. And I want to leverage the platform to like put that shit out on Spotify. If I got money like that too, if I got
that's an investment.
Yeah, okay, cool. Hate is an investment.
You're gonna make money.
Hate's an investment.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm talking about the investment of like, I'm just spending money. I don't intend to make money. I just want to Well, I just want to like if me and Wes were beefing to that level, I want Donald Glover to write a diss track about Wes, and then I want to leverage my money and platform to put it on Spotify, promote it, paid promotions, all of that, so that not just that Wes knows I got this diss track about him, the world knows, and the album cover would be a picture of Wes. Maybe a not flattering one, but like if I had not Wes, obviously I would never do that to you. I love you to death, baby. But if I had an enemy who I didn't like, I would absolutely do that to him.
Are you
Shout
gonna
out
be
to,
on the track? Like, are you gonna P. Diddy
guest
it?
spot.
Are you gonna be like in the background going, get that? Can't stop, can't
I
stop.
wouldn't mind either having like a little short, quick bars verse at the end if I could whip something up, or I want to be like Wes, I know you don't know who this is. Brian, I want to be like DJ Drama. You know how DJ Drama is always just hyping stuff up, talking mess. You know what I'm talking about? Please tell me. All right, cool. I was like, please don't leave me on the island with this joke. Just like DJ Drama. They told us we couldn't do it. But guess what? We decided to do it. Mr. Thanksgiving. Here to give y'all gifts for everybody. They said we couldn't do it. But look, dang, I see us and we cooking. Open up the kitchen for him, Gambeezy. And then Gambino come in and just start spitting. You know, I want the team. DJ Drama. Gangsta Grizzle. You know, Gangsta Grills, you bastards. And then Gambino I want to be in the background just hyping it up, just, yeah. Yeah. Actually, yeah, I want to be in the back. Take that.
Cook them.
I want to use, I would want to use, Donald Glover's writing skills and like his television skills. I want him to make like a comedy or a tragedy, maybe a comma tragedy that takes place like in a hospital. And then I was like, wait a second, am I just asking for Scrubs to be rewritten? But I feel like he could do Scrubs like maybe not way better, but like way. He would have his own take on like a Scrubs / Grey Anatomy crossover. I think it would be like very cool and very like silly, and I would enjoy watching that like a ton. So just produce that for me, Donald Glover. I'll give you all the money you need to make it happen.
So does he take Zach Braff's role, or does he take Donald Faison's role?
You know the answer to that. He's definitely taking Zach Braff's role.
I think I would love to watch something with Donald Glover and Donald Faison as best buds.
That would be kind of cool too.
Those guys would be good.
Are they enough of a contrast?
Yes.
They'll find a way.
They might be on too much on the same wavelength.
I think Donald Faison could be like the older, more serious. Like,
I don't know. He's pretty silly. Like, you kind of need a straight man if Donald Glover's going to be like his like straight man. Yeah, but self.
Even in this show, Donald Glover's like, I mean, he's not really. He's not really. He's actually not really the straight man. I mean, he has moments like. I guess shows like this needs to remind us that we can't be putting these funny people into a box. Because a bunch of these hilarious folks, when you let them do something that's not funny, like a girl who plays Jane, she does comedies. Yes. I've seen her before, but I didn't know her from comedy. So you would have never been able to tell me, oh, she's hilarious from previous stuff. But the point is, we let our perceptions of people's previous work color what they can actually do. It's like Jack Black and King Kong. It's like, hey, just let them act. And it turns out some folks are just talented outside of what we expect them to be,
but I want what they do best, and I would spend my money to get freaking Donald Glover to do stand-up comedy again. Yeah. Come on, have you ever seen his stand-up special?
I haven't.
It is so good. He does the Chris Rock impersonation of Chris Rock's famous bit, but he changes it to vampires. He's like, I love black people, but I hate me some vampires. Like, that is phenomenal. Why can't he do stand-up again? Like, we need that. We need that in the world. Like,
he's a busy man.
He doesn't have to keep making like highbrow stuff that he tries to make. And he does it. He does it well. Don't get me wrong. I love everything that he's touched, but give me the stand-up. I want the comedy.
I was just thinking about the bathtub scene, man. That was
hilarious.
That was really funny.
That was hilarious.
I can't feel it. Do you feel this? Can you feel it now?
It would help if you put your mouth on.
I died when that was hilarious.
That was hilarious. That was hysterical.
In the vein of things that like actually happen in relationships, I feel like that's just kind of the jokes that you make when you're comfortable with your spouse. All right, we all got our ideas in. Yeah, Brian said he would do a stand-up comedy. All right, last question. we're probably, well, I don't think we're going to get a chance to talk about this show again on the pod. So Brian already finished it. Me and Sav, are you going to finish this of your own volition? I guess, Brian, you could explain why you think people should or shouldn't watch it. I am actually on the fence. I don't know if I'm gonna prioritize this show over some of the things that are coming up on TV, and plus I'm just like getting a little bit busier at work. So I don't know that I've seen enough in the first 4 episodes to be like, yeah, I definitely am gonna watch it. But it might be something that I put on the side while I'm doing work, and maybe I'll finish it. I don't think I'm in love with this show, despite it having some very top tier like comedic moments and some very touching, heartfelt moments. I still a little bit about the like the connection between the two is like just not quite at that like top tier level. And if you guys were talking earlier about like, I don't want to always see like supermodels or like really beautiful people doing the action scenes and the killing and the assassin work or whatever, like that's not always who's going to be carrying that out. But sometimes it's like, that's kind of what I want to see. I want to see popcorn flick of just someone who's
he wants to see
who's
beautiful
good looking
people killing beautiful
He wants to see beautiful people
Exactly.
being unrealistically badass. He wants supermodels doing John Wick stuff.
Sometimes you just want the fantasy of like that's just funny and good to look at. That's all. Sav, what do you think? Are you gonna end up sticking with the show?
Sorry, I'm just reeling back from that awful take.
It might be awful.
You said that out loud with your chest, your whole chest. You really meant that too.
Sometimes I want dumb.
Right?
Sometimes, yeah, exactly.
I thought you was like saying it tongue in cheek or gonna have a little sarcasm.
I'm not saying all the time.
Yeah, but that was too genuine. Next time, lie a little bit, Wes.
There's a reason why
don't be too authentic.
Starring action heroes do well. I mean, people like seeing beautiful people do things that maybe aren't like super realistic, but like are just.
But this the guy who said Natalie Portman was too dainty to be Thor. Pick a side.
Call back.
Yep, call back.
Misogyny.
Woman hating Wes is in full effect, y'all. No, I'm kidding. Wes,
bring back Angelina Jolie.
Get out of here, bro. I'm gonna finish the show.
Oh, I would love if they got Brangelina to guest on the show.
That would be funny.
Is that even possible?
Probably not.
No, they hate each other.
Also, I do legitimately think that intro episode was like a homage or reference to their characters.
Oh, definitely.
So like that's probably the most we're gonna get. But I am gonna watch the rest of the show. It's interesting. It borrows enough of the original premise to where you see the connection, but not enough to where it feels like just a lazy rehash. It's really a reimagining more than
it's definitely not. Yeah, it's definitely
the reimagining is enough. Like put it like this: they did a good balance of the headline caught my eye. I was curious, and now that I see how it's actually playing out and how they're executing it, I am intrigued and want to see how the rest of it goes. Especially since the two leads are two characters known more for their comedy, and while there's funny moments, this is not a funny show. So watching them be funny in this non-traditional way, but have to be serious as well to balance it out, I'm just enjoying watching it. It's like good acting. Like I like watching funny people do non-funny stuff and them be good at it.
It's pretty funny. The farting stuff is...
Yeah, but that wasn't... Yeah, but even then, that was more of like a regular Joe Schmo down-to-earth funny, not a well-written-out, punchline, clever joke funny, which is two different things.
It's not super bad.
It wasn't Community.
Yeah, it's not like
it's not Community.
No one's doing a bit. They're just having funny people character moments.
It's situational humor.
It was like, haha, that's funny. Right? But to your point, Savon, about seeing funny people do unfunny and unfunny dramatic things that are actually quite good, there is an argument that comes in, I think probably in episode 7, where Donald Glover is phenomenal, like hugely believable, to the point where I was almost reminded of my own relationship PTSD, where he starts arguing his point and starts doing the clap. He's like, do not talk about that. And I was just like, oh my God, this is almost too real right now.
Couples gonna relate too much to this show. Just like, hey, would you say no that quickly if I was a hostage and they'd kill me?
Yeah, that's kind of awful, right? And it's like you really feel it. You really feel it in their relationship. And I think if that's what you're interested in, definitely watch it through the end. And also, if you do want to see more of that homage to the 2005 movie, you definitely need to watch the last episode, right? Like that.
Oh God, just
I'm kind of spoiling it, but
minivans. Probably gonna be the agency. Probably piss them off. Minivans chasing, they getting jumped. Probably all the stuff Wes is complaining about of them not being badass is probably gonna be them mowing down scores of faceless agency goons. I don't know, but that's just me spitballing. But it is what it is. Either way, if I'm right, I'll be very smug about it, Wes.
As
I love to
should
give
be.
you a hard time for hot takes and shows that are far from being done.
I mean, but my take is that you're not seeing it in the beginning. If they see it at the end, great. But I mean,
if you don't
fine.
give us the details of the ending in the beginning, what are we even doing here?
That's not what I was asking for. Shut up. That was a very twisted way of saying what I said, because that's not at all what I said. Friends, Mr. and Mrs. Smith on Amazon Prime. Check it out. Hit us up on @confidently_pod on Instagram. We're also on YouTube. You can see our shows there. I was supposed to talk to the guys about what we're going to talk about next time, so that you guys could do it. But we'll just put it up on Instagram, what we're going to end up seeing. So look for us there. I think the things that are coming are like Bad Batch. There's a movie that we were maybe going to try and see.
Madam Web? Are we going to do Madam Web?
Definitely not Madam Web.
No one is watching that.
Yeah, I wouldn't read the comic.
That's
on
a
that.
wait for DVD for sure, or wait for streaming.
Till it's on at a bar and you're with your friends.
Yeah, hate watch. Hate watch Madam Web. Yeah, it's like at a bar 30 years from now as something really kitschy.
Watch that shit like Space
while
Jam.
They have techno music.
Watch that shit like Space Jam at a bar crawl.
It looks really horrible. I don't know what they were thinking on that one.
Watch it be good.
Oh, Dune. Dune is coming out soon, as is Avatar. So I think we're probably going to check out Avatar on Netflix. They're doing a live action. And then after that, we'll be trying to check out Dune Part 2. Savon looks pained right now. Maybe we're not going to do Avatar.
I mean, I just have my feelings about Avatar. I'll wait till the show's out, but I don't have high hopes.
All right. Fair enough. Maybe that's why we should watch it, to see.
What is Netflix doing with all these live action remakes of anime and animation?
Now, I heard One Piece was good.
Who knows?
Yeah, I heard One Piece was good as well.
I'm not a One Piece fan.
Try to watch the first episode and tell me how you
no. People I know who are One Piece fans said it was good. I just am not a One Piece fan, period. But nonetheless, I've been on the record for many times over the years about my disdain of, how live action doesn't translate well from animated. And that's what makes some of these shows just not work. I'm not wishing failure on it. I want it to be good. If I was a betting man, I don't know what the over-under is, but I would bet money on it not being good. That would be my parlay or FanDuel shit, something gambling.
All right, friends, we're out of here. Have a great weekend. Leap year is coming. Leap day. It's leap day, I guess, is coming. And we're actually recording this on the Lunar New Year, so Happy New Year to you as well. Friends, we're out of here. Bye!
I don't believe in the moon.
Incredible!